So as 2022 is beginning and 2021 is behind us, I'm going to take one last look back at some of the favorite pieces of gear and whatnot that I got to try out or get my hands on last year that just really stood out. And I'm just going to roll right into it. I'm going to start off with the Dylan Talks Tone 8-ball humbucking pickups that I put into my 2020 Epiphone Les Paul Standard 50. These things kick ass. They're clear, they're chuggy, they're everything you want for they're higher output, but they're not like super high output pickups. I don't really know what to compare them to. Maybe they're not quite as high output as a Seymour Duncan Invader, so I would say maybe like a Distortion. I'm not 100% sure. But these things are awesome. They're coil splittable, but I didn't do that. I just ran them straight in. I don't really mess with that too much. But they're clear. You hear every note ring true, and I get my chugs. And the clean sounds are pretty good too. I don't have an audio sample of the clean sounds, but these things, they give you everything you need in a good hard rock heavy metal pickup without sacrificing clarity and cut, but they still have that nice low end thump. While a tad expensive, I mean, they don't run any more than like your general higher end name brand pickups or boutique pickups. They're worth every penny. Check them out if you get the chance. You will not regret it. I'm actually thinking about getting his Telecaster set for my telly. That's how good they are. That's how much I like them. First guitar on the list is the Schecter E1 Sls, and this guitar is amazing. It's basically an Explorer, although it kind of has more in common with an ESP Ltd Snakebite than it does an Explorer, but this is an amazing guitar. They're currently $13.99, but you get stainless steel frets, 24 frets. You get locking tuners, Tone Pros bridge and stop tailpiece. If you get the SLS versions of the E1s, you get Fishman Fluence modern pickups, which, let's put a pin in that and we'll come back to that. This is an amazing guitar. It right out of the gate, it played great, it felt great. I set it up for drop C, and it's just a beast. There was no sharp fret ends or anything like that. Everything out of the box, just great. And it was a demo model, so I got it a little bit cheaper than whatever the MSRP was, and I traded some stuff for it. But even still, having all those people with their dirty dick beaters all over it, it still was amazing. The guitar is rock solid. The weather has shifted pretty considerably here since I bought it. I didn't really have to do anything to it. And I mean, just the specs for the price, you can't beat them. As much as I love my Fenders, you know, for the price, stainless steel frets, set neck construction, ash body, flame maple top, Fishman Fluence modern pickups, there's a lot of good there for that kind of money. Alright, going back to the Fishman Fluence moderns. Incredible pickups. I am not going to rip all the pickups out of my guitars and switch them to Fishman's. You know, EMG is the sound that I grew up with. EMG gives me the sound that I'm looking for. But these are a nice tonal option that I never had until I got a guitar with them in them. I got to try them in the Schecter, and they were in the Ltd Nurgle 6 guitar that I demoed earlier in the year, and I mean, they just blew me away. For the most part, they required some dialing in on my settings, just because they're pretty different from an EMG. But once you get them tweaked in, they sound fucking killer. another guitar on the list, the Epiphone 1959 Les Paul Standard. It is by far the best Epiphone Les Paul you can buy. Look around, you're not going to have good luck finding them new at the moment, but there are deals out there on the used market, and that's where I got mine, and this thing is sick. It was better than I expected. The upgraded electronics and the Gibson pickups being in it really just get you that much closer to the Gibson experience without the Gibson prices. Is it exactly like a Gibson Les Paul? No, of course not. And it shouldn't be expected that it should be. But it is perfectly serviceable, perfectly giggable, and I would take this on tour. This thing has handled anything that I've thrown at it, and it sounds amazing. It plays great, and I kind of wish it would come in some variety of colors, like I kind of thought maybe like a aged like Lemon Burst or Honey Burst would look really cool, but then after they dropped the Joe Bonamassa Lazarus guitar, I kind of understood why that wasn't a color option on the 1959 Standard. But if you get a chance to play one of these and you like these types of guitars, it's not a straight up metal guitar. I mean, it's, you know, based on the 1959 Les Paul, so that doesn't have a lot of modern features, but it's still a great guitar, and I'm glad I got one. Another guitar, while I don't own it, I got to play it and try it out for a couple weeks. The Ltd Nurgle 6. It's the single cut Eclipse that he put out a few years ago. They're no longer in production, but that thing was a metal monster. Very comfortable to play. It had Fishman Fluence Moderns in it, and it just sounded huge. And I mean, the black satin finish and the behemoth triumvirate logo on the fretboard just make for an overall clean but killer looking guitar. I'm not typically one of those guys that's into the quote metal guitars, but that thing, it's obviously a metal guitar. You're probably not going to see it at church gigs or anything like that, but it just has that feel to it. You know, you got that classic single cut feel, but with some modern touches to it, and you can't help but play the heaviest riffs out there once you get your hands on it. It is an amazing guitar, and if he ever decides to sell it, I will be first in line to acquire it. And last but not least is the Ltd James Hetfield Snakebite. This is basically the realization of a 14-year-old kid's dream. As long as I can remember playing guitar and being into Metallica, I always wanted a James Hetfield signature guitar, but when I was a teenager, obviously it was a lot harder because his signature guitars were always limited to 200 pieces, and you know, back then it was a lot harder to come up with 1,500 or $2,000 or however much they were. I can't remember how much they were back then. I want to say they were like $2,000. But you know, now here we are. The Snakebite was the first one I got, and wow, you know, I mean, it's not as iconic as his White Explorers or his Black Explorers or some of the other guitars he used. It's like I said, it's the realization of a 14-year-old kid's dream, and it is an amazing guitar, and probably something I will never part with. So that's that. That was 5 pieces of gear or whatever that I acquired or got to try out in 2021 that just stood out above the rest for different reasons. And hopefully I get to get my hands on some stuff this year that floors me just as much as that other stuff. And I really can't say I played anything bad or got anything that was extremely bad last year, but yeah, those 5 were by far the standouts. Give maybe an honorable mention to the Kirk Hammett White Zombie guitar, but I really just kind of bought that for how it looked. I'm not a shredder and things like that. I use it, but you know, it came down to that or the snake bite, and the snake bite was just, that was more my jam. That was more the thing that I needed to have, so that's what it was. But what about you guys? Did you guys get anything that just like floored you, or something that maybe you've wanted for years and you finally got your hands on it, and you know, whatnot? Let me know in the comments below and we'll go from there. Like always, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one, guys.